A Yemeni missile hits the nearby Ben Gurion airport, damaging a road and halting flights. Iranian President Pezeshkian says his country will not tie its future to nuclear negotiations with the United States. Russian President Putin says Russia has the strength to end the Ukraine war, but hopes nuclear weapons won't be needed. A ballistic missile launched from Yemen has hit the perimeters of Israel's Ben Gurion International Airport, damaging a road and a vehicle and causing air traffic to stop. The Israeli occupation military confirmed its defense system failed to shoot down the projectile, despite several attempts to intercept it, adding that an investigation was underway. Yemen's Houthis claimed responsibility for the missile launched at Israel's busiest airport. Yemen's Houthis have claimed responsibility for a missile launched at Israel's Ben Gurion airport. Houthi spokesman Yahya Sarria said the group carried out a hypersonic ballistic missile strike targeting Ben Gurion International Airport outside Tel Aviv this morning. The statement claimed the strike successfully hit its target and urged international airlines to avoid the unsafe airport. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold a meeting with the Defense Minister Israel Katz and other top defense officials after the Houthis in Yemen struck the Ben Gurion airport with a ballistic missile. The meeting will examine potential responses, including a direct Israeli strike on Houthi assets in Yemen. Tonight, Netanyahu will convene his security cabinet in person to discuss the expansion of the military campaign in Gaza, fighting in Syria, the Houthi attack, and more. And for more analysis, we now move to Salma Marwan in our newsroom. Hello, Salma.
Thank you, Salma. And for further analysis, we're joined from Amman by the political analyst Adil Mahmoud. Mr. Adil, welcome to Q News. And first off, in light of this recent development on the Yemeni front, how might Prime Minister Netanyahu's emergency meeting with top defense officials signal a shift in Israel's military posture towards Yemen?
Good afternoon to you and to all the viewers. In my opinion, Israel allowed this missile to pass toward Ben Gurion airport. It's not a failure of the air defense system, but it's only to end the Yemeni issue, as the Israeli the Israeli side is throwing these accusations against Iran, supporting and meaning that Iran is also indirectly responded, bombing the Rajai or contributing to the Rajai port operation. We are seeing this escalation, and in my opinion, this only means to escalate the Israeli operation against Yemen. The statements today coming from Israel saying that they rejected the U.S. cooperation with Iran or the current ongoing negotiations. I think, on contrast, if this is a failure of the air defense system, then this is a failure of Netanyahu managing internal affairs and external ones. But I don't think it is this case here. It's only a provocative case to strike Yemen back, and we are going to see counterattacks soon. And this is all a response to the US-Iranian negotiations. And we have seen a statement saying that Iran should stop giving support to the Houthis. We have seen a lot of experiments by Iran to provide more support to such strikes.
Yes, sir. Sorry for cutting in. So you don't think that this incident imposes a challenge on Israel's air defense capabilities, considering the 25-meter crater the missile caused and the airport?
I think the scenario that the Israeli system is multi-layered and very complex to be infiltrated that way, and Israel wanted this incident to happen as an excuse to head Yemen back and to strike it back. And we have seen 4 systems, and even we have a lot of military bases for the US, and they could have detected this missile, but they let this missile go. And today we are watching what's underlying behind this incident. Either it was a failure or not. Israel wants an excuse to escalate on the Iranian forefront, not only Yemen.
So, sir, could this escalation draw Israel into deeper military engagement with Yemen, and what are the potential regional consequences?
In my opinion, the Israeli casualties due to the Yemeni strikes are not really influential. They are meaningless strikes by the Yemeni side, pretending that they are defending the Middle East region. What we have seen is the impact on this on Syria and Yemen. These militias must end. This project is not being very fruitful, but I think now the Israeli escalation will not be only towards Yemen but also towards Iran. It's clear that Iran is behind this incident, and there must be a clear response by Netanyahu, and he will launch an operation against Iran. There has been a lot of meetings between Iran and the US, and there have been no positive outcomes so far. And in my opinion, I think that this incident only means to escalate the regional tensions further and to strike Iran back and to lower it into military confrontation to fail the negotiations further. Mm-hmm. Because these ballistic missiles by the Houthis are not owned by the Houthi group. These are Iranian missiles with Iranian supervision. As the US stated months ago, they have been striking the Houthi with ballistic missiles, and they have received the reciprocal hits. I don't think that the system failed to intercept the missiles. They let it go. And Israel today is...
Yes, sir, your point is clear. Sorry for cutting in due to the shortage of time. From Amman, that was political analyst Adil Mahmoud. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News. And now we go back to Salma Al-Fai in our studio.
Thank you, Salma. Israeli protesters have gathered in Tel Aviv calling for an end to the war in the Gaza Strip and the release of the remaining detainees. Protesters urged the government to end the conflict, saying the only way to bring back the detainees is to return to the negotiating table. Since the collapse of an earlier ceasefire agreement in March, Israeli troops have been carving out wide buffer zones in Gaza, squeezing the 2.3 million population into an ever narrower zone in the center of the and along the coast, and shutting off the entry of aid trucks. We now move to the latest developments in Gaza. At least 40 Palestinians have been killed and 125 were injured in the Gaza Strip over the past 24 hours. Local health authorities report that the total Palestinian death toll since October 2023 has risen to 52,535, with more than 118,000 injured, most of them women and children. Since Israel resumed its offensive on March the 18th following a two-month truce, 2,436 people have been killed and 6,450 wounded. Rescue efforts remain severely hindered as emergency crews struggle to reach victims due to ongoing strikes, targeting ambulances and civil defense workers. Many casualties remain under rubble or in inaccessible areas. Gaza's health ministry has issued an urgent appeal for fuel, warning that hospitals are on the brink of running out. While some fuel is stored at designated sites, the ministry says aid groups are unable to access or transport it because of Israel declaring those areas off limits. If no new fuel arrives, hospitals will run out within the next 3 days and may be forced to shut down, the ministry added. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has warned that Gaza's healthcare system is nearing total collapse, describing the humanitarian health situation as catastrophic after nearly 2 months without medical aid due to Israel's ongoing blockade. The WHO spokesperson, Margaret Harris, said Gaza's residents are deprived of essentials like food, water, shelter, and medical care, and fear of hospital attacks has kept many from seeking treatment. Hospitals face severe shortages of basic supplies, with overcrowded conditions and a surge in trauma injuries and disease exacerbating the crisis. Despite having stocked warehouses and teams on the ground, the WHO says the continued blockade is preventing the delivery of life-saving aid. Harris warned that the situation is very close to the edge of the abyss. And Gaza's government media office has reported that over 70,000 children are currently hospitalized due to severe malnutrition as Israel continues to block the entry of essential aid, including baby formula and nutritional supplements. According to the statement, more than 3,500 children are under 5 are at risk of imminent death from starvation, with 290,000 others on the brink of death. It also highlighted that 1.1 million children in Gaza are lacking the minimum nutrition required for survival. The statement condemned the blockade, accusing Israel of using starvation as a weapon while calling attention to the shameful international silence surrounding the crisis. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, the UNRWA, has called for urgent international action to prevent the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza further as Israel's total siege enters its 9th X. The UNRWA stated that the situation is now beyond imagination, with vital supplies for survival completely blocked. The agency stressed the need for a concerted global effort to address the ongoing crisis. The Palestinian Commission for Detainees and Ex-Detainees Affairs has reported that conditions in Israel's Gilboa prison have sharply deteriorated, citing violent raids, beatings, and medical neglect of Palestinian prisoners. According to the commission, suffered injuries, including broken ribs, hearing loss, and internal pain following repeated assaults. 2 major raids took place in April, with one involving police dogs attacking prisoners. The report also highlighted a scabies outbreak and denial of medical care, particularly affecting detainees who suffer from heart condition and who sustained multiple injuries during recent crackdowns. The Commission is urging urgent international intervention to halt the abuse and provide immediate medical assistance. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has said that his country will not tie its future to nuclear negotiations with the United States. According to Iranian media, President Pezeshkian said that Iran is prepared to continue independently if nuclear talks with Washington become complicated, emphasizing the country's reliance on internal unity. In a previous statement, he noted that domestic affairs are not dependent on the outcome of negotiations, though he expressed confidence that a peaceful resolution could lead to significant progress. He also stressed that the absence of an agreement would not necessarily result in difficulties for Iran. An Israeli newspaper has confirmed the accuracy of Washington Post report regarding coordination between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the dismissed U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz concerning the Iranian file. Washington Post had quoted two sources stating that Waltz angered President Donald Trump as the U.S. National Security Advisor appeared to adopt Netanyahu's belief that the time had come to launch a military strike against Iran. It added that officials in the Trump administration considered that Waltz was trying to tip the balance towards military action and that he was working in close coordination with the Israelis.
Representative helped us get a deal that got 25 out. We're working now on another deal that we hope will succeed.
And we now move to the latest developments in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that Russia has the strength and means to bring the war in Ukraine to its logical conclusion, but expressed hope that nuclear weapons would not be necessary. Putin said Russia had been provoked, but had refrained from making grave mistakes. He emphasized that the conflict, which began in February 2022, could be resolved without nuclear escalation. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly called for an end to what he describes as a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia, lamenting the ongoing bloodbath. The Kremlin, however, has said the situation remains too complex for a swift resolution. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has announced that Ukraine is developing new sanctions targeting third-party entities, helping Russia evade existing restrictions. In his daily address, Zelensky also said Ukraine expects major defense support packages soon and is laying the groundwork for post-war reconstruction.
Серйозні основи для відбудови. Водночас ми готові якнайшвидше, хоч від сьогодні, переходити до припинення вогню, якщо Росія готова до дзеркальних кроків.
At least 11 people, including 2 children, have been injured in Kiev after a Russian overnight drone attack set multiple residential buildings on fire. And falling drone debris ignited fires in the various districts, with 76 firefighters deployed to contain the blazes. Several vehicles were also damaged. Ukraine's military reported shooting down 69 of the 165 drones launched, with another 80 either diverted using electronic warfare or identified as non-lethal decoy drones. The attack comes amid speculation over a potential pause in hostilities during Russia's May 8th to the 10th World War II Victory Day commemorations. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has rejected a proposal from the U.S. President Donald Trump to send U.S. troops to Mexico to fight drug trafficking, stating that sovereignty is not for sale. And Sheinbaum's remarks came in response to a Wall Street Journal report that claimed Trump has pressured Mexico to allow deeper U.S. military involvement in combating drug cartels along the shared border. In a statement, a U.S. National Security Council spokesperson reiterated Trump's position, emphasizing that Mexico must do more to tackle criminal gangs and cartels. The spokesperson also noted that the U.S. was prepared to enhance cooperation with Mexico in securing the southwest border while acknowledging ongoing threats from foreign terrorist organizations and drug-related crime that impact American communities.
La soberanía se ama y se defiende.
Security has been heightened around the Vatican City as preparations intensify for the May 7th conclave to elect Pope Francis' successor. And around 133 cardinals under age 80 will gather in the Sistine Chapel to choose the next leader of the 1.4 billion member Roman Catholic Church. Once elected, the new pope will be announced with the white smoke and a public blessing from St. Peter's Basilica. Crowds of hundreds of thousands are expected in Rome, recalling the massive turnout for the late pope's funeral, which drew over 400,000 people. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba has expressed strong disappointment over a new 25% tariff on auto parts that took effect earlier in the day. Ishiba told reporters that Japan will continue to urge the U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to reconsider its tariff measures. Ishiba also said Japan is negotiating with the United States on all U.S. tariffs following reports that the U.S. side is unwilling to offer exemptions on duties imposed on products such as auto and steel. The U.S. administration imposed a new 25% tariff on imported auto components, including engines and transmissions, in another blow to Japan's mainstay car industry, which has already been slapped with the same rate of tariff on automobiles that took effect in early April. Australia's Treasurer Jim Chalmers has announced that the government will prioritise addressing the dark shadow of the US-China trade war following its resounding re-election victory. The announcement comes after a campaign that highlighted concerns over the US trade policies and their impact on the global economy. Chalmers stressed that the immediate focus would be on global economic uncertainty, particularly the implications of the US-China trade tensions for Australia. Meanwhile, Australia's Conservative opposition leader Peter Dutton lost his seat as voters shifted their focus from cost of living pressures to broader issues, including US trade actions. The Labour Party's surge in polls was triggered by the Conservatives' controversial proposals, including federal workforce cuts and a plan to mandate in-office work. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we've been covering. A Yemeni missile hits near Ben Gurion Airport, damaging road and halting flights. Iranian President Pezeshkian says his country will not tie its future to nuclear negotiations with the United States. And Russian President Putin says Russia has the strength to end the Ukraine war, but hopes nuclear weapons won't be needed. And concludes our news bulletin for the hour. And don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. And thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.